Just a couple of kilometers from the Gaza Strip, we're once again at another Israeli kibbutz. This one is called Nir Oz. But this is actually unlike any other kibbutz, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the damage that happened here, because we've been told it is particularly bad. And I've visited 4 of the 20-odd kibbutzes that were attacked by the Hamas on October the 7th, and I can tell you already, first impressions, this is particularly bad. You can see, the spray paint by the terrorists that they put on each door as they walked in. This is one of the houses of a tiny little kibbutz where 400 people lived. And the reason why it was particularly badly damaged is because about 100 of the people who lived in this little kibbutz were either murdered by the Hamas or were taken hostage. We're told by the IDF here that about a third of all hostages currently in Hamas captivity are from this kibbutz alone. That's about 70 to 80 of the total number of hostages are just from Nir Oz, this particular kibbutz where I'm standing right now. It's just ash and dust. There's nothing else here. Everything's been reduced completely to rubble and fire debris. These are the remnants of not just firearms, but a place that's been completely torched. Now, the Nir Oz kibbutz had about 400 people, very small, just a few houses, 400 people in all. Most of the people working and living in this kibbutz were farmers, agrarian, entrepreneurs. Many of them, were told, grew avocados. Some of them worked in the nearby sealants and paint factory, not very far from here. But a peaceful commune right in the middle of the Negev desert. The Negev desert completely surrounds this particular kibbutz. But the kibbutz itself was considered a bit of an oasis. It's beautifully green. It has this wonderful botanical garden right in the middle of it. You can hear the sound of parakeets up in that tree, parrots of some kind up in that tree, and yet in the distance you can hear the thud of artillery. Each and every house completely destroyed. So this is the kibbutz. Just look at the contrast in pictures, viewer, because I want to be able to adequately convey the contrast. Here you've got this beautiful botanical garden here, and on the other hand, the terrorists using spray paint to mark each house as they went in and out. Each house just a pile of debris, either completely burnt or destroyed and vandalized by the terrorists as they invaded. Nobody lives here anymore. Like every kibbutz that we've been looking at, this is a complete ghost town as well. The only occupants here are those who protect it, people from the IDF. The rest of it is just completely destroyed. Here you have the remnants of a car, bullet-riddled car, that's been reduced to dust and ash. Nothing left of it. There you've got in the distance another house that's been completely damaged and destroyed. There's just ash everywhere. We were told by the IDF that this particular kibbutz is particularly unsettling because there's just fields of ash everywhere, where homes once stood, and that's very, very true. That's exactly how it is. Field of cactuses here. We're told that the 400 people who lived in this kibbutz were all plant fiends. They loved plants. That's why you've more artillery landing not very far from here. Lots of beautiful plants, lots of beautiful flowers. There's apparently a flower patch where there are about 86 species of flowers not found in Israel, found only in this particular kibbutz. So it was something that was the pride of the people who lived here. And just to show you a little bit more about the kinds of damage that we're seeing here. Look at this. I mean, this doesn't even really need a description. They came in, they just went on a complete rampage. They just destroyed everything in their path. Everything in their path. and they just walked through. Uh, 80 people taken hostages. 80 people taken hostage. A large number, murdered. We're not being permitted into some of the houses because we're told that the survivors have objected because there were pictures of blood, pictures of cribs, images of all sorts of personal items stained with blood that was splashed all across the media and the internet, and that was just a terrible, terrible thing for these survivors to actually have to live through all over again. Just look at this. This is all that's left here. Just look at these images. Let me just get you a little closer so you can see. We're going to be reporting very, very sensitively because these are, after all, people's homes, and hopefully at some point of time they will return. So I'm going to just show you these things with a little bit of care. Fire was the main weapon that was used here. We've seen some bullet holes in some of the walls, but it is very clear that in this particular kibbutz, arson was the main weapon wielded by the Hamas terrorists. They came in with lighters, lighter fuel, and they just set everything ablaze, which is why nearly all, 99% of the damage here you see is all fire damage. When they said fields of ash, this is what they meant. This is what they meant. This is the inside of somebody's house. Once again, you can't even make out what everything is right now because all of it is just simply fire dust and ash and walls with soot. There will be a program perhaps at some point to get all of this repaired so the people can return, but I'm just wondering in my head as a journalist, as a civilian, how will anybody ever come back here? I'm just trying to think about that for a moment. How will anybody ever feel safe to come back to a location of this kind where everything is just completely broken? This is somebody's house. And you can see the markings on the wall there. How can anyone feel even remotely safe coming back to a place like this, even if it's completely repaired? Is a question I want to ask all of you viewers. If this happened to your house, would you be okay coming back to this place? Look at everything here. Personal artifacts, personal effects, things you've connected over a life, wall hangings, chairs, furniture, people's personal items that perhaps nobody should have to see, children's toys, and a life built with a great deal of care. And remember, these people live just 5 minutes from the Gaza Strip. It's a 5-minute drive to the Gaza Strip from here. And this is how it turns out. Now, residents of all of the kibbutzes that we've reported from over the last few days, none of them, obviously, understandably, justifiably, remain over here. They've all left. Many of them are staying in hotels or with relatives in places like Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, very far from the Gaza Strip. And that's because their houses look like this. That's because their houses look like this. That's because their entire livelihoods have been destroyed in just a few hours of senseless carnage. Anything that they look at here will remind them of the life they built with their children, even as they grieve, because even children were slaughtered in this particular kibbutz. The ash is flying into my eyes, and I don't know when the smell of soot, the smell of decay, the smell of death will disappear from kibbutzes of this kind. But this is really what the reality of kibbutzes are. Kibbutzes were considered, by people in Israel who had the means as a kind of utopian, ideal kind of life, a place where people could live, raise their families safely, happily, without having to worry too much about their security, even if it was just, a couple of kilometers from the Gaza Strip. But now they've become some of the most guarded places in Israel because of what happened in just a few hours. I'm just wondering, because the defense minister and the prime minister of Israel say that their biggest priority right now is to return that sense of security. After looking at a kibbutz of this kind, and each and everything that I say, punctuated by the sound of artillery from very nearby, would you return, viewer? Would you return to a place that was subjected to this, your own home? I'm wondering, because I'm asking myself this as well. Would you return to a place where people had run riot, torched it, demolished it, destroyed it, something that you'd spent your entire life savings building? The same could be asked for the other side as well. Make no mistake, it's not that I don't acknowledge that, and I will be reporting on that as well. But would you? Because hundreds of kibbutzniks, that's what the people who live in kibbutzes are called, are in faraway cities. They're spending their life savings now staying in hotels. The government is helping them by putting them up as well. But it's up to them whether they will ever want to return here, because this is their property. They own these places. Will they ever return? Ask yourself that. Will they return? Will they want to return? Would you come back to a place where you saw family members killed? Would you come back to a place where your neighbors were kidnapped and are still being held hostage? How long would it take you? Just try and think of a number. Few days, few weeks, maybe a couple of months, maybe a few years, maybe never. Maybe you want to have nothing to do with a place like this ever again. It's something to think about. And this is just one kibbutz. There were 20 kibbutzes that were attacked in this very, very similar manner. And that's why, as we continue to report from here, as the world sees a stream of images from kibbutzes of this kind, what happens to all of those people? What happens to the civilians who wanted nothing to do with war, who wanted nothing to do with anything but to have a really, really tranquil life, raising their kids, and hopefully a better future ahead of them? And all that's left is this. This is all that's left. 80 people taken hostages by Hamas terrorists, some of them, as young as 20 or 30, young men, terrorists of the Hamas, came and took people away from here. And this is what they left behind in a house. And the reason I'm constantly harping on what they left behind is this is a view that's completely overwhelming. It's overwhelming because of how little there is that's actually left. Broken plates, just the skeleton of a house and belongings that you can't even recognize anymore. A plate, a dish, somebody's poster, little bits of pots and pans, the metal skeletons that make up a house. It's all gone. And how are people ever going to actually even think of coming back to a place like this? Now, I remember just a couple of days ago that a Hamas terrorist leader was on a big screen in Kerala addressing a political gathering, and it's been defended by a certain section in the country. And I haven't said anything about it so far because, I'm far away in a conflict area. Tempers run high. People have strong views. And I saw a section of India's so-called liberal class, making various comparisons of the Hamas and Israel with the British, and pretty much just normalizing a Hamas terrorist leader making a speech in Kerala, in a country like India. And not outright criticizing it, but, saying, "Theek hai, Hamas ka aadmi aaya aur speech diya." And I remember feeling not rage, because rage is a weak word, especially when you're in a war zone and reporting from a place that looks like this. But I just remember thinking, these are people who've never seen conflict. These are people who've never probably gotten out of their living rooms sitting at their keyboards, thinking that their political views on social media count for a lot and that they're so influential. These are people who care nothing for the dead. They believe that the Israel-Palestine conflict is just another, cynical battleground for their shallow biases and prejudices. They believe that any polarizing issue anywhere in the world, including one as deep-rooted as the Israel-Palestine conflict that's been on for so many decades, is just another opportunity for them to display their leanings, that it is resonant of what they believe is majoritarianism versus the underdog. And some of those things, may in various analyses be true, but for them to think that this is about them, I just had a small personal message. This has nothing to do with you. This is so much larger than you that you are invisible. So if you think that, I'm stepping out of my line here in terms of my role here as a journalist to give you the facts, but I do want to give you a little bit of opinion because this is a very, very painful place to report from. And as we report from Gaza as well, I want to tell you that this is not a topic for our, self-defined liberal class in India to think that this is a place for them to sharpen their knives. They don't understand it. They will never understand it. They are so far gone and so completely soulless, in my view, that they believe that normalizing a Hamas terrorist speech in a state like Kerala just a couple of weeks after the Hamas did this in Israel is okay. They believe that's okay. They believe that's forgivable. They believe that's par for the course. They believe that things are so far gone that their silly beliefs, their silly, commitments, and their silly tutu memes on social media have a link with what's going on between Israel and Palestine. I can say, viewer, with a great deal of surety that none of these people who've, not outright condemned a Hamas speech in Kerala has ever seen anything to do with conflict. They've probably never seen suffering. They've probably never seen a disturbed area. Forget about war. So I leave it to you, the viewer, to think about that. They're a very small section. I do know that they don't deserve much attention, but it's something that really triggered me, and I did want to give a little bit of attention to it because this is, after all, a country. These are, after all, influential people with thousands of, viewers and audience and followers, etc. But I think what a shame, what an absolute shame that something like a Hamas terrorist giving a speech in Kerala, can be even remotely defended at a time like this. All of this, remember, comes at a time when the Israeli ambassador to India is looking to get the Indian government to ban Hamas as well. We don't know if that'll happen, but the case is there, viewer. The case is everywhere around where I stand. The case is there. Whether India will do it or not, we don't know. Whether it's in India's interests or not, we don't know. I've explained that on a couple of shows in the past as well. But the pain and the suffering of the victims of Hamas terror is real. If you cannot condemn Hamas terror while supporting the Palestinian struggle, then you have no right to speak up. If you don't feel pain for the dead here at this kibbutz, Nir Oz, and all of the other kibbutzes that we've been reporting from, then you have no business to say anything about this conflict. If you believe Hamas and the Palestinian people are the same, it's time that you shut up and sat on your words. Because it is possible, it is absolutely possible, and I've demonstrated that with my reporting here, with all the analysis we've had here on India Today, and with the only channel reporting, remember, both from Israel as well as the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and all the Palestinian territories, that it is possible to condemn terror while also supporting a two-state solution, while also supporting a peaceful and sustainable future for both Israel and Palestine. There are haters, there are people so narrow, so completely far gone and soulless to believe that this has something to do with their narrow-mindedness. Ignore them, because Israel and Palestine both deserve better. At the kibbutz, Nir Oz, 2.5 kilometers from the Gaza Strip. This is Shiv Aroor for India Today.